Bron Breakker crushes Seth Rollins on Raw. Seth Rollins loses control on Raw. Bron Breakker dominates Raw chaos. Brutal attack on Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins destroyed by Breakker. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated on all the latest news. What really happens when someone like Seth Rollins, a man who has built his entire career on control, timing, and turning chaos into opportunity, suddenly finds himself on the receiving end of something he can't outthink or outmaneuver? And more importantly, what does it say when Bron Breakker steps into a WWE ring and doesn't just compete with that kind of man, but physically strips away the comfort of being untouchable in front of everyone watching? Because this wasn't just another Raw segment you forget by next week. This had that uncomfortable feeling from the start, like something was already off before anything even happened. Seth Rollins comes out the way he always does, composed but almost too composed, like he's already mapped out every possible outcome in his head and is just waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. That familiar posture, that slow walk, the eyes scanning the arena like he's not just inside it but above it in some strange way. And you can hear the crowd reacting like they always do, some cheering, some booing, but mostly just acknowledging that Seth Rollins is Seth Rollins, and whether you like him or not, he usually controls the temperature of whatever room he's in. But then you get Bron Breakker. And it's funny because Bron doesn't even need a long entrance or a dramatic explanation. There's something about him that feels like pressure the moment he appears. Not loud pressure, not flashy pressure, but the kind that sits on your chest without asking permission. He walks like he's already decided the outcome, like the conversation is already over and the only thing left is the physical confirmation of it. And when he locks eyes with Seth Rollins, you can feel it through the screen, that shift where this stops being presentation and starts becoming something more unpredictable. Seth smirks, because of course he does. That's his reflex. That's his armor. He's done this too many times to act surprised. But the problem with confidence is that sometimes it becomes a habit instead of awareness. And Bron Breakker doesn't hesitate long enough for habits to matter. The moment things break loose, it's not slow, it's not careful, it's not even really structured. It's impact. Bron steps forward and just like that, Seth Rollins is hit with something that doesn't feel like a move so much as a collision. And the sound in the arena changes instantly. You know that weird silence crowds get when they realize they might be watching something real in the middle of something scripted? That's what happens here. A shoulder tackle, a strike, another burst of offense, and suddenly Seth Rollins is no longer the man setting the pace. He's reacting. And for someone like him, that alone is already the first sign that something is going very wrong. Because Seth is not built for survival mode. He's built for manipulation of rhythm, for controlling spacing, for making opponents feel like they're always one step behind mentally even when they're physically ahead. But Bron Breakker doesn't care about any of that. He's not trying to solve Seth Rollins. He's trying to overwhelm him. There's a difference, and it becomes obvious fast. Seth tries to create space, because that's instinct. Roll out, reset, breathe, think. But Bron doesn't allow breathing room to exist for long. Every time Seth tries to separate himself, Bron closes the distance like it's personal. And maybe it is. Or maybe it's just ambition with no filter yet. Either way, it's relentless in a way that feels less like a match and more like a pursuit. The crowd starts shifting from anticipation to something closer to disbelief. You can hear it in the noise, the way reactions don't fully settle into boos or cheers anymore. It's just sound, scattered and uncertain. Seth Rollins absorbs another impact and suddenly the body language changes. Not fully defeated, not even close, but adjusted. And in wrestling, adjustment usually means someone else has already forced you out of your comfort zone. There's a moment where Seth manages to land something back, a quick strike, a flash of timing, that classic reminder that he is still dangerous. And for a second, just a second, you think okay, here we go, he's found the angle, he's about to flip it. Because that's what Seth Rollins does. That's what history says he does. But Bron Breakker doesn't stay impressed for long. He absorbs it, steps back in, and keeps coming forward like momentum is something he can physically override. And that's where things stop feeling like a standard Raw segment and start feeling more like a statement being written in real time. Because Bron isn't just winning exchanges. He's erasing the idea that Seth Rollins controls exchanges in the first place. Seth tries again, another burst, another attempt to regain control, but every move starts getting answered before it fully settles. And the more this continues, the more you can see it in Seth's reactions. Not panic exactly, but something closer to recalculation under pressure. That moment where the mind is still fast but the situation is faster. And the audience starts reacting differently now. You can feel people leaning forward instead of reacting emotionally. That's usually when wrestling stops being entertainment for a moment and becomes something closer to observation. Because nobody is sure how far this is going to go. Bron Breakker keeps pushing. Shoulder tackles that look heavier each time. Strikes that feel less like individual moves and more like a continuous wave. And Seth Rollins, for the first time in a long time, looks like he's dealing with something he didn't fully prepare for in advance. At one point, Seth tries the kind of high-risk adjustment that usually turns things around for him. The kind of sudden shift that catches opponents off guard, that flash of brilliance he's known for. And for half a second, it looks like it might land. You can even hear that little spike in crowd noise, that instinctive reaction people have when they think the tide is about to turn. But Bron catches it. Not just counters it, but intercepts it in a way that shuts the idea down before it can fully exist. And that's when the tone changes again. Because now it's not about who is ahead. It's about whether Seth Rollins can stop the momentum at all. And the answer, for this moment, is no. What follows is a stretch of offense that feels less like a sequence and more like control being stripped away layer by layer. Seth is still fighting, still responding, still trying to create openings, but every attempt feels like it's happening a fraction too late. That's the frustrating part. Not just that you're losing, but that you're always reacting instead of acting. And Bron Breakker stands in the middle of all of it like someone who has decided this is his pace now. Eventually, Seth goes down again in a way that feels heavier than the previous impacts. Not dramatic in a theatrical sense, but heavy in a real physical sense, like the accumulation has finally started to matter. And when he doesn't immediately get back up, that's when the arena really shifts. Because wrestling audiences know timing. They know when someone is selling pain, and they know when someone is being forced into it. Bron doesn't over-celebrate. That's important. No unnecessary posing, no extended taunt, nothing that suggests he's trying to convince anyone of what just happened. He just looks at Seth for a moment like he's confirming something internally, like the outcome matched the expectation he walked in with. And then he steps away. Leaving Seth Rollins in the ring, not destroyed, not written off, but undeniably impacted in a way that feels like it carries forward. And that's where the mystery really settles in, because now the question isn't what happened in that moment, but why it felt like that. Was this just dominance from a rising force? Or was this a deliberate message aimed at one of WWE's most established minds? Because Seth Rollins doesn't stay in situations like this for long without responding. That's not his pattern. That's not his identity. And Bron Breakker, whether he meant to or not, may have just created a situation where the response matters more than the initial attack. And that's what makes this interesting. Not just the beatdown itself, but the direction it's pointing toward. Because moments like this don't usually exist in isolation. They stretch. They grow. They escalate. So now we wait to see what Seth Rollins does next, because history tells us he doesn't absorb something like this quietly. And Bron Breakker just put himself in a position where every future encounter carries more weight than the last. If you're still watching this unfold, you already know this isn't a one-night story. This is the beginning of something that's going to get louder. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this one is going to split opinions, and that's where it gets interesting. And honestly, thanks for sticking through.